All right. Hello and welcome. Critical Conversations. Oh my gosh, Blanca is joining today's episode. I'm so excited today. I have my neighbor, Andrea, here. And she is the intro for you. I've been thinking about this. So I'm really excited because when I first met you, you were pregnant with Evelyn. Mm-hmm. And, I
don't know. We moved in when Evelyn was 2 weeks old.
Okay, yeah. So you just had Evelyn, yeah, who is a year older than my daughter, and just kind of casually walking by. I think we were like decorating for Christmas, so yes. Maybe it was like after you had already moved in. Yeah. But anyways, I remember thinking this woman is a powerhouse because you have the demeanor of a woman on fire. And as I've gotten to know you over the years now, I've learned that your power is something that you've had to really harness and own because of your profession. Yes. And it's interesting, when I was asking you yesterday, what do you want to talk about? I was like, oh shit, this is why I asked her to be on my show. Mm-hmm. So Andrea is a doctor. She's a physician. She gives me advice all the time. And I appreciate it so much. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the years and creating now what I would consider a good friendship with you, where I feel like I can trust you with some intimate details of my life. But I think the perception early on was like, I'm afraid of her because you came off as this confident, like you're a doctor, you're moving, you're going places, you're doing things. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people know what to do with that. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today in Critical Conversations. Sorry. Blanca really, really loves Andrea too, because Andrea has a dog, Iggy, that is Blanca's best friend. Mm-hmm. So Andrea, why don't you give a little intro about yourself, mm-hmm. and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah. Andrea, I am an internal medicine, bariatric medicine physician.
Get down. No more.
I've been out of residency for 8 years. Have 2 children. Like to stay active with biking and
Blanca, here.
Hang out with Miss Karissa.
Yeah. You're an avid biker. Yeah. You're really into. I've watched your journey of really transforming your whole physical well-being, your mental, like emotional. We've had conversations. I think I turned you on to Brene Brown at some point.
Yes, you did.
So when we started talking about what we were going to talk about, mm-hmm. you mentioned women and judgment.
Yes.
Tell me about this.
Yeah, I mean it's all of the things from all the levels. Just the way that we judge our friends, we judge other women to women judgment, and then just how that interplays in my professional nature. When I started working where I work now for 8 years, there's a lot of great education that goes on with patient interaction and how to, be a more successful communicator. And what just keeps coming up, which is what I also run into in my practice, is that women judge women on a much harsher level. They've even studied it, and they studied like 15,000 patients, and they found that women patients who saw women physicians gave them 18% of the time gave them a lesser score than a male physician for a very similar interaction.
18%.
18% of the time.
Why?
I think I think part of it is the whole, women competition. We're kind of competing with each other, even though like we know we're not, and we're working towards that. Looking up with lots of great work in our community, but there still is, I think, just that underlying, subconscious thing. And I think there's also this kind of expectation of we want them to be in a position of power. Like people choose women to be their position, but then they rate them harsher and they expect more out of them.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because we just are in competition with them and expect the best. Because what if we were in that position, like as a female? I think we're thinking that person could be us in that be a perfect person.
So it's interesting when I work with clients, judgment is a huge topic. So tell me, when you hear the statement, what we judge in others is really a reflection of ourselves.
Right.
What does that mean for you in the workplace?
I think early on there's this kind of perfectionist kind of drive.
Yep.
And it's very common because most people who are physicians are type A. Right? It's
very organized.
Very organized.
Yes.
Very go-getters.
Yeah.
Like we've been taught, from a young age, especially in my generation, I'm 42, of just being kind of perfection and showing any weakness. It's showing any non-perfection as weakness. And so I think that is probably how I manifest that.
Yeah.
In that judgment being what I would be seeing kind of reflected back. But learning that, no one is perfect. And the more we humanize ourselves, the better the outcomes and the better the relationships. But I think that's kind of where that comes from for me.
Yeah. So I have so many questions. I'm trying to I wrote a couple things down. But the first one I think I want to ask is if we think about this 18%, you also mentioned when we were texting yesterday that there's a lot, and you mentioned it now, the vulnerability piece.
Yeah.
Are women less likely to give vulnerable information to their doctors?
I think they're more likely to give that vulnerable information to their doctors, but I think then they expect a significant different response than a male physician would have.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So I think they expect them to be their physician, but I think they also expect them to be their friends and their confidants and all of these things that we would love to fulfill, but it is hard for one person to have that fulfillment and also remain objective in your care, because that's why you come to a professional, is for them to be objective.
Right.
And make those good decisions without being too close to you.
Yeah.
They want to be close to you, but we don't treat our family members because we can't be objective with ourselves or our family members. And so I think that is challenging.
Okay.
And we're also taught as women physicians to not be vulnerable.
So they actually...
Yes.
You got to tell me about this, because this is blowing my mind.
Yeah. In residency and in medical school, you're taught, not to be vulnerable. You're taught, even though 52% of all med students are female and rising, because it's still newer that females are physicians, even though it's not, there's just is this, you can't be vulnerable, never bring food to say thank you at the end of a thing because that's too feminine.
Oh, wow.
Don't dress too femininely. Don't just kind of all these things about kind of neutering yourself down or neutralizing yourself into this kind of robot of perfectionism and not showing your vulnerability, because then you would perhaps be showing that you don't know what the answer is or that you're not perfect. So it's kind of back to that perfectionism.
Woo! My brain hurts. Okay, so if we're talking about vulnerability and perfectionism, how has this negatively impacted your career?
Well, when you get out into practice, it turns out that people want to see a little vulnerability, and they want to see that you're not correct when you're kind of building that relationship with them. And so that was very challenging, since that was really kind of shoved into me for 7 years.
Right.
So now 8-ish years out, and with a lot of education from my employer, I've been able to kind of debunk that. But early on, it also really manifested in my personal relationships, because, I had to be this kind of perfect person, and I had to be, correct or put an answer, so it was challenging. You couldn't really be vulnerable in any part of your life.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the thing that really helped you overcome and identify that, okay, I can show some, obviously there's a professionalism that will always exist.
Yes.
But what was you mentioned your employer really helping. Yeah. Was there one thing that you can pinpoint, or maybe a couple things that really helped unlock the concept that it could be?
It's okay. She's fine. I love you.
She loved it.
Coordinating today.
Can I climb in your vagina,
yes.
please?
Can you want to get my uterus?
That's her MO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple and a mentor, both just kind of say like, hey, like in your line of work now, like you can be like, they don't want perfection. If you don't know, they would rather have you say, I don't know. They want to see kind of the human side of you. Like they love, like your patients love if you put pictures in your room that kind of humanizes it and way to kind of do it. And then I started, because it's a lot to be told to do something, then told not to do it, or to kind of pull it back a little bit. And so, because people were like, she's really harsh. Like, yeah, that's because I've been trained in the ICU. It's to save your life.
Right.
So it's hard when we're talking about like your knee pain.
Right.
So it really helped as I first went to humor.
Okay.
Yes. So I would first like kind of, pretend to slip off of a chair, or kind of trip as I entered the room, or, do something like somewhat intentional, or make a bad joke.
Yeah.
That was very safe.
Yeah.
Or something that kind of, and I found like that was a great way to be connecting, but I still honestly wasn't being very vulnerable. Yeah. But it was a nice kind of bridge to people thinking that I was having a deeper connection. Wasn't perfect.
Okay. So really one of the ways in which you've identified allowing yourself to be vulnerable is through utilizing imperfection.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So would
physical imperfection.
So would you say that perfection or vulnerability is imperfection?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think no one's perfect, and we need to learn. Like, that's how we learn and get bigger and better and stronger and smarter and everything. Yeah. So yeah, I would say it's the enemy. The perfection is the enemy of vulnerability.
Yeah. And how does it play out that you've seen as a doctor in a male-dominated industry, right? It's as you said, it's just now kind of balancing itself out. How have you seen that with your coworkers that are identifying as male?
Luckily enough, my coworkers are all very awesome, and we are female-led.
Awesome.
In most parts of our organization and in our just local leadership. And it does help that the few men who are in a position of power in our office are married to very strong, willed, similar personalities. So they completely understand the dynamic. And a lot of them are trained more at the age of me.
Yeah.
And so they have, coming to it a little bit more of a similar experience. So everyone that I interact with on the professional level is fantastic. And very aware, because they're also taking these classes and also interacting and wanting to strive to have better relationships with their coworkers and their patients. Yeah. It's mostly the dynamic of the patients, and then sometimes some of the staff we've had to kind of work on a little bit. There's just like an expectation. You have to be nicer to the staff, which I'm always nice, but you have to be like extra nice to staff versus like a male physician could say something significantly less nice and not get in trouble or have the negative ramifications.
Okay. So if we are talking about, being vulnerable in the workplace, what's the boundary for you?
It's a good question. I think it's kind of, it can be kind of variable depending on the topic. And I think it's also, you have to be a little variable, because some patients who I've had some patients that they've been with me since I started there.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that, I can kind of read the situation depending on the severity or what needs to be. Like I can, have a little bit more of a personal relation. I have a personal relationship.
You have a very personal
relationship with them. Yeah. And have that wall come down a little bit more, but definitely like, the especially older patients, and they found that in the study that I referenced, that older women were harsher on female physicians and were more likely to give them a less score. So I feel like, especially with newer patients, especially if we're learning. Yes. If they're older and they're from a different generation, I definitely keep the vulnerability mostly just to humor.
Right.
And I'm kind and stuff and make a nice connection, but I'm just a little bit more cautious. Yeah. And so I have a little bit higher boundaries.
Yeah. Okay. it's interesting that we got to boundaries through all of this, because one of the hot topics I've been having with clients lately is around how a good boundary really is not hard and fast.
Right.
It does have variables in it. And can you tell me more about how that has helped you be more relatable to your clients?
Yeah. I'd say that, so professionally, we tend not to, we don't share our personal information, our personal experiences, because it's subjective, it's not objective. But sometimes I have patients that are struggling with different issues and they want to know. So the easiest way they'll want to know is like, what would you do for your family? I'm like, well, it's still like subjective and not objective. It's still kind of a boundary, but like sometimes I can just read the patient and they just really need a more personal. And so I'll just say, first I'll start with like, my patients tell me this, even though it be my personal or my family's experience. But if I really know them, I really can tell that they need that, like
that confirmation,
and that more kind of intimate information and reassurance. Then I will say like, oh, my family, had a similar issue and this is what they found was successful or not successful. And then I do have a couple patients that I will, definitely, depending on the subject, will say, oh yeah, I've had really bad tennis elbow before.
Yeah.
And I did all the OT and it fixed it. And then my son pulled it back out and had to get 3 series of injections.
Yeah.
So like, and that was, I think, really helpful for that patient because they were struggling with thinking that should be done by now. Because
right.
Most 90% of the time this elbow gets better with very few interventions. So they were in that 10% like I was. And they were kind of questioning going to OT. And so it helped that I was like, no, it actually works. You actually do it virtually and it actually works really, really well. You don't have to drive anywhere. It's amazing. But if there's another option too, and it is painful, but it does make it better. So I think it gave them more reassurance that I really knew what I was talking about. Yeah. And they were confident that they would have me.
Yeah, I feel like there's a piece of vulnerability, boundaries, all these things, values even, all these buzzwords, that it's like, in sharing your experience. I think I ask you all the time, just tell me what to do. Right. I don't really care. You're the expert. And so I think when you have that boundary, it's important to sustain, I am the expert.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's where it gets muddy.
It is very muddy.
So when we're talking about the older generation of women and the newer, we're learning.
Yes.
We're learning.
Everyone's learning.
And I think that, have you pinpointed what changed for women in medicine?
It's just more.
Just more of you? More impact?
I think that's helpful. And then I think just how the whole culture is changing, the Me Too movement, and there being more women in all workplaces. Yeah. And a lot of males male physicians are often married to female physicians. So I think that always helps when you see your own, sister or mother having the same, running into the same things, so you can kind of get more of a personal perspective on it. Yeah. And I think just time, but it's just been, there's still many things that are not created equal. And there was a women in medicine conference that was lovely in the fall of 2019. And it talked about maybe we just need to blow up the system that is made not for us. Right. Yeah. Because some physicians get compensated or rated or partnered based off of the score called Karissa, even though we know that this study, the 18%, is not a new study. It's just the most recent study. It was the largest. But if we know that at least 1/5 of the comments are going to be less for the same work output and experience, it's like, why are we basing potential compensation or partnership or advancement in career on that tool? Okay. Right? That's not, So it's kind of hard because it can kind of come at you, even if your local employers are great and fantastic and supportive. Yeah. But then you have like this overall, this is how we rate people. This is just how we've always done it. This is how we do it. So it's kind of like,
Yeah, I think the whole "this is how we've done it" is what's killing us as a society. Yeah, because we are meant to change. Because let's be honest, if this is how we've done it, we'd all be with fucking plows out in the field with our cows and horses and pigs.
We'd still be smoking in the office.
Exactly, we'd still be smoking. We'd be giving babies Vicodin or alcohol.
Right.
I don't know. What do we
Whiskey
give?
In the
Whiskey
bottle.
in the bottle. So I do want to ask, and I want to ask because I think that this is like the big change. And I think one of the things I've always admired about you is you probably were one of the first women I had intimately gotten to know that were the financial breadwinner of a family.
Yeah.
Because, and it like, I'm getting like emotional. I kind of want to cry because that feels so sad.
Yeah.
To think that. And so you brought up pay and compensation.
Yeah.
How has this played out for you in the workplace?
Yeah. I mean, luckily enough, we aren't super tied to it. But a lot of places are.
Yeah.
But it did delay my partnership into my group.
Yeah.
So advancement in career.
Yeah.
So luckily enough, it's not a huge part of our financial aspect, but it did delay, and that was something that I really wanted. And I'm partner now, and it's fine. But it just was challenging, you know, to know that it was an imperfect scale, but this is really what was kind of holding me back. And yes, you know, I did the work that I needed to, and things got better, and it helped. And I'm glad that, you know, I was kind of confronted with, you need to do a little more work here. But it was also just very challenging because I felt like it was this huge like block, and I felt like, well, I've been told to do this, and I'm told to do this, and then at home I'm supposed to do this, and then you know, and then you know, are you this boss here and then not the boss here, right? You have to be vulnerable here, not vulnerable there. Like it's just, it just was very challenging. Yeah, and I'm glad that was 3 or 4 years ago because it was very challenging, and it was like postpartum with my second child, and
trying to navigate the cage.
Yes.
It's like you basically go from I have to be in this cage and be the good wife.
Yes.
And then I have to go into this cage and be the good doctor. And then I have to go over here, be the good daughter, be the good sister. Like it's like women, this is what makes me emotional, is that women are caged in. And that has been my experience in life is I went from being the good daughter. Well, you find a man to take care of you.
Right, exactly.
And you rely.
Your dad gives you away.
Yeah. And then it's like you're in another cage. Yeah. And I remember, you know, looking at you and being like, fuck, she looks so free.
Yeah.
But you weren't.
No, not at all. And it is just super, super, super challenging. Yeah. And I think women in our kind of generation, 30s and 40s, have the worst. Because we grew up in that, you know, atomic family, nuclear family, wrong word. Same concept, right?
Same concept.
Sounds like. So we grew up in that nuclear family of the traditional roles, most of us. But then we are now like liberated, like, right? We can do whatever we want to do. We can be those professionals. We can work more than full time. We can have babies. We can take care of them. Like, we can do those things, but it's too much if we're doing all of those.
All of it.
And then our partners were also trained in that thing. So yes, they're trying to be partners, but really everyone is innately lazy, and we all go back to being lazy.
100%.
I'm even lazy. And so, we're doing the majority of the lifting, and we all know that.
Oh, yeah.
And it is just beyond challenging because you just can't. And then you're kind of gaslighted and like told, why can't you be better?
Yeah.
Right.
Do more.
And do more, be kinder, but be smarter, but be faster.
Yeah.
But also make the money. Yeah. It's like the whole, like with the Barbie movie with, I forget her name, had that little speech about you can't be too pretty or pretty. And
oh my God, I love her. I don't know her name either. Yes, I'll have to find it and I'll put it in the notes, but she's a badass. And that speech.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to me how our daughters get to grow up in something very different.
Yes.
But I remember how hard it was, even in my marriage, where Nigel is a very women, like, he's like, you want to do it? Great.
Oh, yeah. You
can
drive that truck.
Yeah. Like, women can do anything. Like, all his employees are basically women. He loves women.
Yeah.
But even in that dynamic, it's like, well, but like, why do women have to cook? Why do I have to clean the house?
Oh, yeah.
Why do I have to do, like...
Because it's a subconscious, like, role.
Exactly.
That automatically go into us.
Yeah. And it was like, the early part of our marriage was me taking all that on because I was going to be the good wife.
Right, yeah.
And then I got to that point where I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
You can do dishes too.
Right.
Like your hands aren't broke.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So tell me, you know, what we're going to get to wrapping this up here, but I want to know what your vision is for, you know, the younger generation, for even women who, you know, we see things all the time where it's like, it's never too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot of women who might find this podcast and be like, I still want to be a doctor, or I still want to do the thing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What do you want those women to know?
Yeah. It's never too late. Always try. You can always make changes in your life, even if they're small. Mindset shifts are huge. And that you really can do anything, and you should really support the women who are around you. Bike racing really taught me that. Like, we'll be racing each other and we're like cheering each other on, even though that person just passed me.
Yeah.
And I'm really sad. And not, you know, I'm like internally very sad with myself that that they were able to pass me, but we're still just cheering each other on, because at the end, you're competing with yourself. You're not competing with others, and you can do anything you want to do. You just gotta do it. Yeah.
Okay. This question you gave to me. So you said mind shift.
Yes.
Shifts.
It means so much.
Okay.
Yes.
And because you are, what do we call Western medicine doctor?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So you're a Western medicine doctor. Mm-hmm. How important is your physical well-being with your mind?
Oh, so important. Yeah. I mean, they're interplayed. Like, right. If you feel poorly, if your back hurts, your mind hurts. If your mind hurts, if you're depressed, your back hurts. Like, it's connection. There's huge connections with almost every part of your body and your mind. They completely interact, intergage.
Yeah.
And sometimes if your body's not great, like, the mind shift can help. And I personally learned that through athletics. Like, especially this year, it was kind of a rougher year. So I just really worked on my mindset, and it actually gave me a better result than working just on the physical aspect.
Yeah.
So it can just be huge, whether it's a long-term mind shift or it's even just in the moment while you're trying to do something, you know, taking that second to breathe or having that next goal or whatever your thing is, it can be huge.
Yeah. So really, do you agree with the statement that we can do anything if we choose it in our mind first? We can overcome it. We can become...
Yeah, I mean, we can't fly, but yes.
Well, yeah, you can.
I mean, technically you could jump off this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yes, I think so. And it might, and I think also we have to be, the whole detachment from the outcome, but also we have to know that the timeline is not ours.
Oof.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, yes, you can do anything, but it might not happen tomorrow.
Yeah. You have to persevere.
Yeah. It might happen in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've watched you go from like, oh, I'm going to buy a bike and ride on the road to like, now you're doing these crazy things, but it's like you're cross training. And you don't give up.
Yeah.
You don't give up. You're like, oh, I'm sick. I haven't gone in a week, or, oh, we were on vacation, but it's like it's the prioritization.
Yes. And I sought help.
Yeah.
Like, I got a coach. Who then suggested a physical therapist, right? And so I've upped my team of supporters. And sometimes, you know, you can have support from your family and friends, but sometimes you need that expert support. And so really like hiring a cycling coach, was amazing. And that really helped, especially with the mindset, just shift that. I could have probably gotten there, but I think I definitely got there several years earlier. Yeah. And then having her being so supportive and then leading me towards like, hey, let's expand your team. Like, maybe you just need a visit. Oh, look, your back pain's gone. Even being a physician, maybe this is why you don't physician yourself.
Right.
Right. I would have told myself if I came into my office what to do, but.
Oh my God. We cannot take our own advice. That is why I continue to pay for coaching and mentorship, because I do need that outside third eye view to help call me on. Like, even today, I had my call with my mentor this morning, and she's like, but you're not doing it. And I'm like, but I thought I was. And she's like, no, I'm looking at the outside in. But I think that also ties into, we have to trust each other as women.
Yes.
And support each other as women. And like, I even think about our relationship. where like in the beginning I was like, well, I can't be friends with her because I'm not a professional and she's going to think that, you know, it's like I was perceiving things and I'm sure it was vice versa, but it's like, you know, even with age difference, it's like, here we are, like we went out to dinner, we had the best time, you're on my podcast. So I think it's really like the message is that as women, we can change.
Yep.
We can evolve. We do deserve equal pay.
Yep.
We do deserve to be uncaged.
Yes.
Whatever our life looked like.
Yes.
If you want to be Betty Crocker and be in the home,
great.
that's awesome.
What you want to do.
If that's what you want to do.
But you should feel like you want to do that, not you're forced to.
Exactly.
But if you're forced to do that and you can't get out, then shift your mind shut. No, that sounds horrible.
No.
Sounds horrible.
Call us.
Find a friend.
We will come kidnap you and we will liberate you.
If we need a community, I think we got away from that during COVID. Our community is kind of strong. And we need that. And we need people that reflect back to us what we're doing and help us. And
is there any final thoughts that you have? Anything that you want to share about women in the workplace?
I would just say always give anyone a benefit of the doubt, that we're all trying our hardest, and even the professional who should be like happy and perfect and making good decisions might have been up with a sick kid the night before, or might be having, their family might be having some illness, or they're depressed or something else. And so just, I think, always assume the best intention.
Yeah.
And then just be kind.
So you're not perfect.
No. Beyond perfect.
I mean, I think
that would be boring.
It would be so boring. I say it all the time to people, like, do you want to live on the Truman Show?
Yeah,
no. That is the truth. Like, if we could look at each other imperfect but whole.
Yeah.
Like, because we're all on a journey.
Yeah, we're all on a journey, and we should support each other whenever we.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much, Andrea, for coming on my podcast. And thank you all for joining us wherever you are in the world. And we'll look forward to having you on the next conversation.